Amazing rescue. Single mom saves injured Marine. Discover how their lives transformed with his K9. The diner was starting to dim as Sarah flipped the open sign to closed after another long shift. She wiped the counter for the last time, exhausted yet hungry for another minute of peace. Outside, the cool evening air brushed against her skin, but the weight of her scattered thoughts clung tightly. Bills were piling up, the threat of eviction loomed like a storm cloud, and her daughter, Emily, was blissfully unaware of how fragile their situation truly was. Every day felt like a tightrope walk between ambition and survival, and all Sarah could hold on to was hope. That hope shattered when she heard a crash, followed by chaotic barking. Heart racing, she dropped her cleaning rag and dashed outside, her instincts kicking in. Unfolding the scene, she found a Marine on the ground, his motorcycle mangled beside him. "Stay back!" he shouted, gritting his teeth, clearly trying to push through the pain. Beside him, a large German shepherd barked fiercely, as if guarding its wounded partner. Sarah hesitated, a knot of fear tugging at her gut. What if he was dangerous? But the need to help him outweighed her hesitation. She moved closer, her maternal instincts swirling with concern and urgency. "I have to help you," she insisted, kneeling beside him. His scars were evident, visible reminders of battle that spoke louder than words. She noticed the pain in his eyes mirrored the struggles she faced every day. He was fighting a battle she understood all too well, the fight to keep moving forward when everything felt broken. As she stabilized him, she felt a profound connection, an unspoken bond born not just from circumstance but from shared scars. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With his injuries mending in a small room at her home, their lives began to intertwine in a way she had never imagined. Sarah juggled her shifts at the diner while watching over Jake, the Marine, and Max, the dog who refused to leave his side. Emily adored having Max around, her laughter filling the house. But Sarah felt a pit in her stomach as whispers of judgment echoed around town. She worried about her daughter catching sight of their unorthodox situation, about how the community would view them. Unruly thoughts pried at her heart. Was she opening herself up to heartbreak? As moments of laughter turned into deep conversations under the weight of darkness, Sarah found herself wrestling with burgeoning feelings for Jake. Could she truly take a chance on someone haunted by his past? When Emily asked about Jake's scars, Sarah felt the walls closing in, her burden growing heavier. Could love flourish in a world tangled in societal expectations and personal fears? The climax hit as Sarah faced her neighbor at a town meeting. The bitterness in his voice stung as he questioned her choice to welcome Jake into their lives. She felt exposed, stripped of her armor, grasping for words to defend her right to happiness. The air was charged with tension, her body tight with anxiety, as Jake's voice broke through the noise. In that moment, vulnerability surfaced as both truth and love were laid bare before the judgmental eyes. Dawn creeped over the horizon, casting a fragile light on their intertwined paths. Sarah's heart raced as she grappled with her next move. Could she let love in, ready to embrace the journey they were about to undertake? Or would the shadows of the past and community pressures snuff out the light they could share? Uncertainty loomed larger than ever, leaving her standing at a precipice, questioning if she was ready to leap towards a future she could only dream of. Jake's presence filled Sarah's home, yet the sincerity of his warmth was stark against the chill of uncertainty. Every interaction was charged with a growing intimacy, yet Sarah found herself wrestling with feelings she feared might be misplaced. The burden on her heart felt heavier. Behind every laugh shared with Jake, a whisper of doubt crept in. Was she truly ready for such profound change? Over the following days, she cultivated a sanctuary of normalcy, the laughter of Emily echoing like music against the walls as Max trailed around the house, a loyal guardian. Yet, each happy moment faded, replaced by a gnawing tension. At night, when stillness settled around them, her thoughts spiraled into darkness. Maybe she was clinging too tightly to hope, fashioning dreams built on fragile foundations. The prospect of rejection loomed larger, insistent, and relentless. One evening, with dinner simmering and the soft glow of the living room lamp illuminating the space, Sarah found herself lost in thought. Jake watched her from the dining table, his sharp gaze seeming to read her beneath the facade she projected. Sarah's hands trembled, the knife slipping from her grasp as she prepared vegetables. When Jake stood and approached, she took a step back instinctively, a reflex rooted in years of employing armor against emotional vulnerability. "Hey," he said softly, unafraid to break the silence enveloping them. "What's going on in that head of yours?" "It's nothing, really," she deflected, knowing the friction between them was escalating. Yet, he wasn't easily deterred. "You're a terrible liar," Jake countered, a playful tone laced with sincerity. "I get it, though. Emotions can be hard to sort through. Just know that I'm here. No judgment." His words momentarily dismantled her defenses, laying bare an undeniable truth. In those moments shared, her longing to trust expanded, instinctively battling with skepticism. Would Jake's commitment create a wellspring of safety for her and Emily, or profoundly alter their lives forever? As his reserved gaze bore into her, she sensed his understanding of battles fought outside society's view. They were two storm-tossed ships in a sea of uncertainty, navigating treacherous waters. Yet it wasn't just his scars she wanted to understand. It was her own. Each unspoken fear bubbled up, and she knew the time had come for authenticity. "Do you ever wonder if you can truly leave the past behind?" she ventured cautiously, eyes searching his for an answer. "I mean, what happens when you begin to open up and then everything crashes down?" The flicker of vulnerability in his expression carved out a delicate space for honest dialogue. "Every day. I think about it," he admitted, "but I'm learning that the past doesn't dictate who we can be. It's a component of us, not the entirety. And being with you—" He left the word suspended in the air, a hopeful implication laden within. Her heart burned with a possibility she yearned for yet feared to embrace. She chose then, in that intimate moment, to let down her guard, if only slightly. "Then maybe we can do this together, whatever this is." With her admission came a surge of genuine resolve. Trepidation met determination beneath the surface. There was strength and connection, both in awaiting love and allowing joy to replace doubt. As they dined together, an unspoken pact emerged between them, a silent agreement to navigate the uncertainty head-on. But lurking in the shadows was the weight of their pasts, a reality neither could fully escape, and Sarah wondered what awaited them in the moments ahead. When the phone rang later that night, resonating with a sense of foreboding, Sarah answered, heart pounding. The voice on the other end shattered the fragile peace she'd started to construct. "You've got some debts you need to take care of, Sarah. Time is running out." She felt her stomach drop, panic boiling as she turned to Jake, instinctively seeking his reassurance. But his expression morphed into something more tense, a warrior on the edge, preparing for an unseen battle. The moment hung in the air thick with possibility, and as fear mingled with newfound determination, Sarah realized that she was at another crossroads, a decision that would ultimately shape her family's future. Could she muster enough strength to confront the mounting pressure, or would it pull her under? Night deepened, and within that moment, reality crackled with urgency as she faced what lay ahead. The next chapter of their intertwined lives demanded courage, and Sarah was prepared to fight for more than just survival. The next morning arrived with a heavy mist hovering over the neighborhood, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, her heart racing as memories of the phone call churned in her mind. Images of her debts swirled like autumn leaves caught in a tempest, draining her resolve, teasing her with visions of inevitable failure. The weight of uncertainty compressed her chest as she considered her circumstances. Once again, she found herself staring into the mirror, assessing the determined gaze that peered back at her. This was no longer about merely surviving. The stakes felt unbearably high. She had Emily to think about. The notion of vulnerability, previously an alien concept, now transformed into a necessary shield. To survive, no, to thrive, she needed to confront her debts, And more importantly, her fear of failure. Determination coursed through her as she paced the kitchen, the familiar warmth of the sun creeping through the window, offering a strange comfort. At that moment, she realized she couldn't face this battle alone. With a sudden clarity, she reached for her phone and scrolled through her contacts, hesitating only briefly before dialing Jake's number, feeling his presence from last night still lingering like a cocoon around her. "Hey, it's me," she said when he picked up. Her voice, usually steady, trembled ever so slightly, betraying the urgency behind her words. "Everything all right?" Jake's concern crackled through the line. "I thought we could grab coffee later." "I need your help," Sarah breathed, the weight abandoning her for a moment at the utterance of those words. "Of course, I'm on my way." With that promise, Sarah felt a flicker of possibility ignite within her. She busied herself as she waited, tidying the remnants of last night's dinner, almost finding solace in the rhythmic motion of cleaning. Emily bounced into the kitchen with sleepy eyes, her bright smile illuminating the lingering gloom. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Caught off guard, Sarah hesitated. "Just a lot of grown-up stuff. But don't worry, we'll tackle it together." With each reassurance, a newfound sense of accountability blossomed within her. Facing the unmanageable debts became not just a burden, but a shared goal. Emily's innocence lingered in the air, amplifying Sarah's desire to forge a different narrative for their future. Jake's arrival startled her from her thoughts. He stepped inside, his presence grounding as he scanned the room with that keen perception of his. "What's going on?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah launched into a brief but detailed account of her financial troubles. As she spoke, a ball of anxiety twisted in her stomach, but the cadence of her voice seemed to steady her resolve. "I want us to figure this out," Jake said, his brows furrowing with determination. "You're not alone in this. We'll make a plan." His unwavering support acted like an anchor, transforming the swirling panic into actionable steps. Together, they elaborated on strategies, cutting unnecessary expenses, addressing creditors in a more structured way, even borrowing from sources she would not have considered before. Each suggestion sparked hope within her, peeling away layers of despair, but realization surfaced too. For every financial hurdle, there was an emotional one tethered to her past, a daunting legacy of feeling unworthy. "Jake," she began, hesitating as uncertainty knotted in her chest. "What if I fail?" "Failure is part of growth," he replied, that warm sincerity wrapping around her like a comforting blanket. "You're not defined by it. You're defined by how you rise back up." They trained together like warriors preparing for an inevitable clash. The desks in the living room transformed into war rooms of financial strategy. With every step, Sarah grew more resolute, more empowered. She was learning to advocate for herself, not just her child. As the day ebbed into twilight, their strategic session found a natural pause. Jake leaned back against the couch, his gaze heavy with contemplation. "You know," he mused, "you may have hidden talents you're not even aware of yet. Sometimes we surprise ourselves in the toughest times." His insight planted a seed of curiosity within her. What could she discover about herself, about her own capabilities, as they navigated this journey? The soft sound of a distant bark broke the suffocating stillness, snapping Sarah back to the present. The realization hit her. This wasn't just about debts, it was about survival, growth, and redefining her narrative alongside Jake. As twilight settled around them, she met Jake's eyes, a promise forged in vulnerability sparkling between them. There was still much to navigate, and the looming debts would demand not just courage, but ingenuity. But soon, Sarah also knew she must face an opponent more menacing than finances, the specter of her past decisions. Would she have the strength to confront those shadows that whispered doubt? And as they paused in the dim light of the room, resolve mixed with uncertainty, she recognized that while debts could be negotiated, not all challenges had a clear path forward. The time had come to face not just her financial future, but the hidden parts of herself that simmered just below the surface. The next morning, Sarah woke before dawn, an insistent fire glimmering in her chest as she prepared for the day. The lingering shadows of their late-night strategy session clung to her like a familiar cloak. But instead of feeling weighed down, she felt buoyed by a sense of purpose. With Emily still asleep, she took the opportunity to review her notes from last night. Numbers, plans, and strategies sprawled across several sheets of paper. As she sipped her lukewarm coffee, she cast a glance out of the window. The world outside was awakening, revealing a legacy of potential that she dared to embrace. Today was not just a day for action, but also for revelation. What did Jake mean when he suggested she could uncover hidden talents? As the thought danced in her mind, Sarah felt an urge to dig deeper, not just into her finances, but into her own capabilities. With resolve, she turned back to her notebook. One section was dedicated to brainstorming ways to enhance her skills. Skills she had parked away during her marriage, overshadowed by past failures. What am I good at? The question loomed large, and for a moment, uncertainty slammed into her like an unexpected wave. But then she jotted down the truth. Writing. Her passion for storytelling had always been there, lurking beneath the surface like a ship waiting to set sail. Riding the crest of motivation, she decided to reach out to a few local publications. A timeline materialized in her mind. She could freelance, even if just part-time. The money wouldn't solve everything, but it would provide a creative outlet and perhaps even reignite her self-worth. The landscape of her day took on a bright hue of possibility, as the heaviness of her financial burden didn't feel as overpowering when framed by a burgeoning sense of self. By the time Emily woke, Sarah was full of fervor. "You ready for a big day?" she asked brightly, masking her uncertainties. Emily nodded, still yawning but caught in her mother's energy. After a quick breakfast, they stepped out into the refreshing morning air. The school drop-off was periodical now, a stable routine that added structure to their lives, and Sarah felt a swell of pride as she navigated through the familiar streets. On her way back, Sarah thought of Jake. His unwavering support had become a cornerstone to her growth. She picked up her phone, feeling a rush of gratitude. Just as she was about to text him, a sudden thought knocked the breath from her. What if she made a bigger leap? What if they collaborated on something together, merging her writing with his experience? Impulsively, she pulled into a nearby coffee shop, the rich aroma beckoning her in. As she sat at a small table tucked in the corner, a wave of exhilaration washed over her. Why not pitch an article focusing on financial resilience for single parents, incorporating both her journey and Jake's wisdom? It would not only serve as a cathartic release, but might serve others in similar situations. And who knows, it could even lead to something more substantial down the line. Hours passed like minutes, and soon she had outlined her pitch and identified a couple of outlets to target. With a sense of accomplishment tinged with anticipation, she sent a text to Jake to share her idea. "Got an idea, let's meet," she wrote, her fingers trembling slightly as she hit send. His immediate response ignited a spark. "I'm in. Let's brainstorm." In that instant, Sarah recognized the power of partnership, the synergy of shared goals fueling her ambitions. However, beneath the excitement, a whisper of dread curled at the edges of her thoughts. Was it too soon? What if she couldn't live up to the expectations she set for herself? Yes, today had been about uncovering potential, yet the specter of self-doubt lingered. Later that afternoon, she found herself back in the living room, pacing as Emily napped. Each step transformed the sinews of apprehension into strings of focus, the determination to engage not just with her immediate challenges, but with the very fabric of her identity. Just then, the rhythmic chirping of the phone surged again. A call came through from an unknown number. Its unfamiliarity sent a flutter of anxiety into her stomach. Could it be another creditor? Gathering her courage, she answered, ready to face whatever lay beyond. But when she heard the voice on the other end, the foundations of her newfound strength began to quake. A chance encounter from her past had resurfaced. A reminder that the road to her transformation was not just littered with challenges, but also fraught with unresolved tensions waiting to be addressed. "Sarah? It's me. Can we talk?" As the air thickened with uncertainty, one blaring question struck her. Would she seize this opportunity to confront her past head-on, or would she retreat to safer shores? A greater battle loomed on her horizon, The air was thick with tension as Sarah held the phone closer to her ear, her heart racing. The voice on the other end was familiar, yet foreign, hauntingly nostalgic. It was Ryan, her ex-husband, a reminder of both past heartaches and the moments that had defined her. She had spent years untangling herself from the emotional ties he represented, and yet here he was, pulling that thread taut once more. "Can we talk?" he repeated, his tone insistent but not menacing. Part of her wanted to slam the door shut on this conversation, but another part intrigued her. She had fought too hard to establish her newfound identity, to consider retreating back into the shadows of their shared history. "About what?" she managed to respond, her voice a careful balance of curiosity and caution. "It's important, Sarah." "I need to explain," she interrupted, unable to keep her walls entirely intact. "Important? Or just convenient?" The question landed like a stone, the sharpness of it hitting both of them with a jolt. Silence met her words, leaving a chilling void that threatened to unravel her resolve. With every second she reflected on the years of turbulence their relationship had caused, the toll it had taken on her self-esteem, the fragmentation of her spirit. After a long breath she added, "I don't think I can just open that door again." "Please," he pressed, and she could hear something like vulnerability in his voice. "Just give me a chance to explain. For Emily." That name tugged at her heartstrings, igniting a flicker of apprehension. Emily was the centerpiece of her life now. Taking care of her, ensuring her happiness and stability was Sarah's priority. But Ryan's past presence loomed large, and the thought of his influence on their daughter twisted in her stomach. "No, I won't put our daughter in the middle," Sarah stated firmly, determined to keep this vulnerable moment from spiraling into old habits. "You made your choices, remember?" "Choices that I regret," he countered. "Look, I'm not calling for the past. I'm reaching out now because I've changed. I want to be there for Emily. I need to tell you why I'm back." As Ryan's words settled over her like a fog, Sarah felt the sensation of being pulled into conflicting currents. Part of her wanted to dismiss him entirely, to break free from the mental tug-of-war. At the same time, the possibility of closure crept closer. She had prided herself on her ability to act decisively, yet with Ryan, she was confronted with hazy memories that threatened to blur her clarity. After a pause that stretched long enough to feel monumental, she made a decision. "One meeting. That's it. But I want it to be here in town, in a public place. And I'll be bringing someone," she added, a hint of defiance shimmering within her words. "Who?" he asked, his voice suddenly cautious. "Someone who's helped me grow," she replied, feeling the weight of her decision settle within her. "If you have something to say, you can say it while I have support." A sigh echoed through the line, a mix of resignation and acceptance. "Fine. When and where?" They agreed on a cafe downtown, a bustling, lively place where life teemed around them. It would be an environment where she could maintain control, choosing to engage based on her terms. After she hung up, adrenaline spiked through her veins. She sensed a pivotal moment approaching, not just a confrontation with Ryan but a confrontation with parts of herself she had been afraid to face. This was less about reconciliation and more about assertion, about reclaiming her identity fully. As she prepped for her meeting later that week with Jake in tow, ideas and strategies whirled in her mind. She realized this was not just a discussion with Ryan. It was an opportunity to further define the life she was building, reflecting her journey toward newfound confidence. By the time the day arrived, Sarah was already mentally organizing her thoughts. She'd share her successes and resolve, establishing boundaries to protect the fort she'd built around herself and Emily. As the cafe approached, her breath caught. It would take every ounce of strength to engage with Ryan, confronting past shadows armed with her current luminosity. But before she crossed the threshold, her phone buzzed again, and she glanced down to see an unexpected message. "I can't wait to see you, I have good news." The name attached to the message was Jake's. The implications combined with the upcoming confrontation caused a rush of anticipation and unease to intertwine, forcing Sarah to wonder whether she was truly prepared for everything that was about to unfold. Would clarity or chaos await her on the other side of this decisive moment? The cafe's familiar ambiance enveloped Sarah as she stepped inside, the robust aroma of coffee mingling with the chatter of patrons. Each sound, each face seemed to whisper the word, normalcy, so far removed from the turmoil that stirred within her. This was a sanctuary, yet today it felt like an arena, her heart drumming loudly against her ribcage in anticipation of the battle that lay ahead. She glanced around, taking in the choices of seating. Choosing a spot near the window suggested a readiness to confront, rather than to hide. It was strategic, allowing her the view of both the entrance and of Jake, who was running a few minutes late. The glances of fellow customers felt like forces that could either uplift or burden her, underscoring the vulnerability that came with opening her life to Ryan again. The sun streamed in, illuminating the small table with an inviting warmth, a reminder that light could be both welcoming and revealing. Today, she wouldn't hide behind the shadows of her past. Today, she would blaze a trail of her own making. As she nestled herself into the chair, she went over the reasons she was here. Clarity for her daughter, boundaries for her own peace of mind, and determination to fortify her identity against the encroaching complexities of her history. Yet the moment she mentally rehearsed those lines, a simmering anxiety crept in, challenging her resolve. Would she truly be strong enough to hold her ground against Ryan's familiarity? Jake arrived, his easy smile cutting through the tension. There was something calming about his presence. He had an air of stability that Sarah craved. He sat down opposite her, a supportive look in his eyes, one that communicated both encouragement and empathy. "You ready for this?" he asked, his voice low but steady, helping to anchor her swirling thoughts. Her nod was cautious. "I think so," she replied, each word a declaration as she fought against the doubt knotting in her stomach. Sarah could feel the weight of their impending conversation even before Ryan appeared. Then, as if on cue, Ryan walked in. His silhouette was familiar yet dissonant, framed against the everyday bustle. Time had etched subtle changes on his face, but the underlying essence remained. The man who had once shared her life. He paused when his eyes met hers, and in that moment, Sarah sensed the shifting power dynamics of their history. She stood, accustomed to assertive engagements. "We could talk outside," she suggested, leading the way away from the crowds, allowing no distractions. The open air felt like a cleansing, but the vulnerability of the conversation loomed over her like a weighty shroud. As they settled on a bench, he loosened his posture, trying to mask the underlying tension with a tilted smile. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, voice low, sounding almost genuine. "You said you had something important to explain," she interjected, letting directness take the stage. "So let's get to it. About Emily." He hesitated, weighing his words as if gauging how far he could delve without straining her already frayed patience. "I know I messed up," he began, sincere apprehension lacing his tone. "But it's not only about me anymore. It's about being a father. I've changed, Sarah. I want to be a better man for her." Doubt cascaded through her, each word pushing a button she thought she'd firmly shut off. This was the same narrative, wasn't it? The same old promises wrapped in shiny new ribbons. "You think change happens just because you say so?" she shot back, disbelief fueling her steadiness. He lowered his gaze, shame blending into his vulnerability. "I'm not asking for your trust, just a chance to prove it." The weight of his plea hung in the air, eliciting from Sarah a mix of anger and sympathy. She wrestled with revelations, the struggle for acceptance, the longing to understand if this man could be someone worthy of her daughter. But more than that, it was their past she needed to come to terms with, that sacred space where healing and hurt coexisted. "Ryan, I don't want to revisit the past. You have to understand I've created a safe space for Emily and me, and I won't let it be disrupted by hope alone," she replied, her voice steady, even as her heart rattled against her chest. As they spoke, their voices dipped and rose in a symphony of tension, bearing witness to the constraints of their shared history. The chaos within her whispered reminders of a past that had brought so much pain. But now, she recognized the evolution in herself. The strength she had cultivated was no longer contingent upon a trapped desire for resolution. Rather, It stood firmly on the foundation of her principles. Just as she felt the conversation settling into a rhythm of honesty, Jake's voice pierced through. "Sarah, do you think it's really about what he wants, or are we just avoiding what you truly need?" His question hung in the air, reverberating through the atmosphere, shifting the balance once more. In that moment, Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her, the weight of choices vast as the horizon before her. She inhaled sharply, realizing she needed to confront not just Ryan but herself. The shift was palpable. Whether chaos or clarity awaited her, she was prepared to uncover the truth. "Let's talk about what I need," she declared, feeling energy invigorate her voice. It wasn't just about Ryan anymore. It was about her. About Emily, about the life she wanted to forge free from the shadows. The conversation held the potential to redefine everything, pulling her one step closer to her future, one that was entirely hers. As they delved deeper into the conversation, the walls of her decisions began to form a larger structure, and suddenly, another message flashed on her phone. "I'm waiting for you, Sarah. Don't let this moment slip away." With uncertainty rearing its head again, she couldn't help but ponder. Would this discussion with Ryan unlock doors to her past, or guide her to face the future she longed for? The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the bench as Sarah took a moment to sip the lukewarm coffee Jake had brought her. The cup felt heavy, much like the weight of the decisions pressing down on her. Each sip echoed the conflict brewing inside. The past tugged at her while also coaxing her to reflect on how far she'd come. "Okay, Ryan. What do you want to say?" She leaned forward, her gaze laser-focused on him, unwilling to let him dictate the narrative this time. She was done with waiting. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, glancing away as if the weight of her intensity was too much to bear. "I really want to be in Emily's life. I understand if you don't trust me, but I'm willing to prove I can be what she needs," he finally managed, his voice shaky but earnest. "Proving you can be a father is not merely about words." She fought the urge to dismiss his claims outright, understanding the complexities of reconciliation, yet knowing the stakes were considerably high. "What does this proof look like to you?" He paused, visibly struggling with the answer. "I want to attend her school events, help with her homework, and take her to baseball games." The fervor in his eyes mixed with genuine remorse, reminding her of the sweetness they once shared. But she brushed that thought aside. Nostalgia had been her downfall before. "Your intentions are commendable," she replied, her tone even. "But what about the consistency? Walking back in doesn't erase the years you weren't there. Can you commit to showing up, even when it's hard?" At that moment, Sarah felt a shift within herself, a surge of empowerment. She had learned through her journey that her needs were valid. The past no longer managed her feelings. Instead, it informed her decisions. Ryan's face betrayed uncertainty at her questions, and she saw the chance to explore the man he claimed to have become. Sarah decided to pivot the conversation toward clarity. "What work are you doing on yourself? It can't be just about wanting to step into Emily's life. You need to prove you're not the same person who walked away." His eyes widened, surprise giving way to contemplation. "I'm in therapy now, working through my issues. I've started to understand the impact of my decisions, not just on myself, but on others. On you and Emily especially." A sense of humility mingled within his discomfort, and Sarah couldn't ignore the flicker of responsibility sparking within him. As they dissected the past, she caught glimpses of an emotional maturity previously absent. "That's a good start, Ryan. But how will you keep that growth going? Change isn't instantaneous. It's about sustaining effort, continuing to show up for yourself and for Emily." Her words struck a delicate balance between hope and skepticism, yet Sarah wasn't finished. Just then, Jake's presence loomed larger. He had been respectfully silent but now leaned in, offering his perspective. "You claim to be a different man than before, yet what would that mean for Sarah? She has worked tirelessly to establish stability for both herself and Emily. You need to show her that you can enable that, not disrupt the life she's built." His voice resonated with authority, enriched by the respect he'd shown throughout the morning. Sarah's heart raced at Jake's words, Was she ready to let Ryan in, even partially? The notion felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind pressing against her back. She realized that what was at stake was not solely Emily's relationship with Ryan. It was her own capacity to balance compassion with self-preservation. "Let's say I entertain this," she said, her voice steady but her heart pounding. "How do we approach this without complicating Emily's life further? She deserves consistency, not a revolving door of adults who can't commit." Ryan's shoulders slumped slightly, an acknowledgement of reality dawning upon him. "I can accept that," he said slowly. "If you feel it's not the right time, I can wait. The last thing I want is to hurt her again." As their conversation explored the depths of unresolved emotions, Sarah realized she was not merely negotiating terms of visitation. She was defining her boundaries postpartum, safeguarding her daughter while cautiously letting love resurface. With every word exchanged, she felt herself standing taller. Each revelation carved deeper grooves of resilience within her. "Boundaries can be reassessed, but they must be respected first," she stated firmly, laying down the law in a way that empowered rather than alienated. As the air shifted, the weight of uncertainty perpetually swirled around them. The message on her phone nagged at her, reminding her of Jake's unwavering presence and the support he silently offered. Feeling both exhilarated and terrified, she made a decision that signified strength. "I'll consider what you've said, but understand that my priority is Emily's safety and emotional well-being above all. Yours is not mine to decide." Ryan nodded, visibly appreciating her stance yet grappling with the reality of their past. As they ended the conversation, perceptions of each other had undoubtedly evolved yet remained complex. Returning to the cafe, the faint chatter and clinking of cups felt less foreign and more hopeful. But just as she reached for her phone to respond to Jake, another message came in, this one from Emily's school. "We need to discuss Emily's progress." The urgency in the message tightened the knot in her stomach again. Could she truly balance this emerging relationship with Ryan while ensuring Emily was not caught in the crossfire? The tension wrestled deep within her, drawing her back to the very beginnings of her journey, questioning if she had opened the door to personal upheaval or transformative growth. Sarah's resolve steadied as she looked up, meeting Jake's patient gaze. The future hung before her, fragile yet tangible. "Let's go," she said quietly, heart racing, aware that the next steps would define not just her relationship with Ryan, but who she was destined to become. Would she have the clarity and strength to navigate the upcoming storm? The walls of the school's administration office loomed like sentinels as Sarah paced outside, the flutter of apprehension igniting in her chest. The soft buzz of fluorescent lights barely penetrated the clamor of her thoughts. What precisely did they want to discuss regarding Emily's progress? The clouds of doubt swirled. Had her daughter faltered in some way she hadn't yet discerned? She steadied herself, recalling the earnest conversation with Ryan just hours before. Their exchanges had stirred conflicting emotions. Empowerment brushed against fear, and a glimmer of hope flickered alongside the shadows of caution. The notion of allowing Ryan back into her life, even in a limited capacity, was both exhilarating and terrifying. Yet, if she was to confront the uncertainties, she had to be prepared for whatever the school had to reveal. As the principal, Mrs. Jenkins, emerged, her demeanor was a mixture of warmth and seriousness. "Thank you for coming in, Sarah." The way she clasped her hands betrayed her concern, sending a fresh wave of urgency crashing over Sarah. "What's going on with Emily?" Sarah's voice wavered, the looming implications filling the space with trepidation. "Emily has been incredibly bright and engaged in class," Mrs. Jenkins started, a hint of relief washing over Sarah. But the principal continued. "However, we have noticed that she seems anxious during specific activities, particularly group projects. It's as if she's hesitant to fully participate. We think it's important to explore what might be causing this behavior." Anxiety rippled through her, raw and clamorous. Anxiety? The term felt unfamiliar when associated with her vibrant daughter. "She's outgoing at home." Mrs. Jenkins nodded empathetically. "While she performs well academically, some children express their fears more subtly. It might be worthwhile to consider that the changes at home, specifically the discussions around her father, could be impacting her emotionally. Sarah's thoughts collided, wrestling against the comforting image of Emily's laughter. Drew and Ryan's reemergence in their lives, two pivotal male figures anchoring disparate implications. Was it possible that Emily sensed the turbulence beneath the calm, her mother's ongoing struggle for stability somehow filtering into her young psyche? "How do I help her?" Sarah asked, her determination sharpening. The path to healing ran parallel to the journey of personal growth she was undertaking. Each step she took toward greater understanding could empower Emily to do the same. "Open communication is key," Mrs. Jenkins said softly, her eyes reflecting an earnestness that resonated with Sarah. "Support her expressions, encourage her to share her feelings, and create a safe space for her to navigate these changes. It may also help to engage a counselor who specializes in children. We can recommend someone." At that moment, clarity washed over her, a necessary evolution in her approach. Sarah realized that engaging in her own healing process would invite Emily to do likewise. What if she could demonstrate to her daughter that it was okay to confront fears rather than shy away? Perhaps seeking guidance together would not only reinforce their bond, but also empower Emily to voice her feelings constructively. As she left the school, the weight in her chest felt slightly lighter. Each step forward was laden with significance, not just for her, but for Emily too. The potential to deepen their connection now beckoned. She was on the precipice of a new chapter. Her phone vibrated as she walked to the parking lot, Jake's name appearing on the screen. "How did it go?" he had texted, a keen overture toward support. In that moment, she pondered what to reveal. The progress meeting had stripped bare her fears and unveiled opportunities for growth. Could she trust Jake with the emotional chaos that accompanied it? As she slid into her car, she felt the responsibility of being a parent tighten around her. She needed to ensure Emily flourished amidst the complexities looming near them. Could Ryan's re-entry into their lives prove beneficial or disastrous? The uncertainty spiraled once more, igniting a tension she had yet to resolve. "Let's see what I can do," she whispered to herself, determination hardening into resolve. But could she manage this balancing act while also prioritizing her needs? A knock on the window jolted her from her thoughts. Jake stood there, concern etched on his face. Without hesitation, she opened the door, ready to face the dialogue that awaited. "Let's talk," she planned, the enormity of the situation reaffirming her belief in actionable steps. But before she could take another breath, another message buzzed through from an unknown number. "I'm back in town and would like to meet. We need to settle things." Her heart raced as uncertainty crashed back like a tidal wave. What would this mean for everything she had just begun to reclaim? The car door creaked open, and Sarah glanced nervously at Jake, who settled into the passenger seat, his expression a blend of support and curiosity. She felt a magnetism drawing her to share everything, the anxieties, the revelations, the uneasy balance between her past and present. Instead, she swallowed hard, her instinct to shield him surfacing. "Everything's fine," Sarah said, deflecting before taking a deep breath. "Emily is doing well academically, but there are some concerns about her anxiety during group activities. The principal thinks we might need to—" "Find her a counselor?" Jake interjected, his brow furrowing in earnest. "That's a smart idea. Kids can be loaded with all sorts of pressures." His words struck a chord, amplifying the internal battle within her regarding Ryan's impending reappearance. The tension slammed against her resolve, begging the question: would Ryan's presence add or subtract from Emily's healing process? "Yes, I think it might help. I just want to ensure she feels comfortable enough to share her feelings," she replied, measuring each syllable as if they were fragile glass. "Have you considered talking to her about it? Maybe she just needs to know you're willing to listen." Sarah nodded, though a knot lingered in her stomach. "Communication is important," she echoed Mrs. Jenkins' words, only half convinced. "But it feels daunting. I've messed up before when it comes to emotions." Jake gave her a gentle look, an anchor in the swirl of her self-doubt. "You're trying, and that's more than half the battle. You're evolving, Sarah. That's what matters." Evolving. She repeated the word in her head, feeling the weight of the expectation it carried. The drive home turned introspective as they drove through familiar streets, each block peppered with memories tied to Ryan and the life that had unraveled amidst chaos. What if confronting Ryan turned into a test of her newfound strength? Could she display the boundaries that had been etched into her soul during countless sleepless nights? Even the thought forced her to wrestle with the familiar shadows of hesitation and dread. "Sarah?" Jake's voice broke her reverie. "Yeah? Do you want to talk about Ryan?" The name struck like a chord in a familiar symphony, one she thought she had muted. "Not yet," she replied, her voice firmer than she felt. "But I need to." "Then let's prepare for it together," Jake suggested, a resolute calmness threading through his words. "You've already taken steps to support Emily. Now it's time to support yourself." Support herself. The phrase hung in the air, velvety and inviting. "You're right. I've been so focused on Emily that I lost sight of my own needs." An idea sparked within her, illuminating the path she'd been hesitant to tread. Maybe seeking help from the recommended counselor wasn't merely for Emily. It could also be a stepping stone for her own self-discovery. The thought felt liberating, but then the message she'd received earlier flickered through her mind again with startling clarity. An unnamed specter from her past was back, demanding her attention. But what if meeting him derails everything I am trying to build? "Are you okay?" Jake's inquiry pulled her back, concern clouding his features. "No, I think I'm on the brink of making some significant decisions." Her voice wavered with the weight of uncertainty. "Trust yourself. Whatever happens, you have the tool set to navigate through it," he assured her, a glimmer of conviction dancing in his eyes. She exhaled deeply, swirling between fear and determination. "It's not just about me anymore. I am setting an example for Emily." The realization fueled her. Visions of Emily thanked her for trying to instill resilience played in her mind, a beacon illuminating the way forward. Each action she took could resonate within her daughter, serving as a living testament of courage. As they pulled into the driveway, the anticipation of change reverberated through her body, igniting sparks of motivation. Facing Ryan wouldn't merely be a confrontation, it was a chance to reclaim who she had been buried beneath grief and disarray. "Let's meet tomorrow," she finally proposed, brushing away the remnants of fear. "I'll contact that counselor." Jake smiled, relief etched across his features. "See? You're already taking charge." Feeling emboldened, Sarah nodded. Yet uncertainty still clung to her like a second skin, a reminder of the looming challenges ahead. As they walked inside, a sudden thought emerged, slicing through the fog of her mind like a blade. What if Ryan's intentions have changed? What if he's not the man I remember? The clock on the wall ticked quietly, mirroring the countdown pulsing within her. The clock was running down to a meeting that threatened to unravel everything she had pieced together. What lay ahead loomed vast and unpredictable, and as Sarah settled into the familiarity of her home, she felt the weight of the world resting squarely on her shoulders once again, only this time she was prepared to lift it. The meeting loomed over Sarah like a storm cloud as she paced the living room. The hours dragged painfully slow. She glanced at the clock again, its ticking echoing the rhythm of her racing heart. Today would mark a significant turning point, not merely in her relationship with Ryan, but in her ongoing transformation. As she braced herself for the confrontation ahead, a blend of anxiety and determination coursed through her. The morning sun spilled through the windows, casting a warm glow in the room, but Sarah felt cool detachment creeping in, the calm before the storm. Could she stand resolutely as she confronted her past? Would she uncover the truth about Ryan while safeguarding her newfound stability? Jake's presence was a soothing reminder of her growth. He had been unyielding in his support, helping her unmask her vulnerabilities over the weeks. Yet now, she felt the need to confront her doubts alone. Each step forward had reinforced her belief in herself, and now she needed to put those affirmations to the test. Finally, the time arrived. The cafe where they agreed to meet felt like a battleground, and as Sarah approached, she clutched her notes tightly, wrestling with uncertainty. The hum of conversations filled the air, but the din replaced her nervous thoughts, leaving only echoes of resolve. When Ryan emerged from the throngs of conversation, a familiar knot tightened in her stomach. He looked different, more mature, perhaps, but the essence of their past still simmered beneath the surface. She steadied her breath as she took her seat at the table, grounding herself in the knowledge that this moment was about self-empowerment, clarity, and setting boundaries. "Thank you for coming," Ryan started awkwardly, his voice baritone and slightly unsteady. He shifted his gaze, a glimmer of vulnerability evident in his demeanor. "I wasn't sure what to expect, but here we are," Sarah replied, her tone measured and firm. "What exactly do you want to discuss regarding Emily?" "Honestly," he began, fidgeting with his hands, "I want to show you that I want to be a better father. I've made mistakes, but I'm working on it. I wanted to explain why I've returned." The echoes of his words felt hauntingly familiar, a rehearsed monologue drifting on the winds of discontent. "It's not just about wanting to be present, it's about proving that you can change. What are you prepared to do?" Sarah challenged, her heart steady, having rehearsed this very dialogue. "I've done a lot of soul-searching," Ryan said, and she could see the sincerity in his eyes. "Counseling, support groups. I'm dedicated to knowing more about being a good father. I want to attend school meetings, help with her homework, see her grow." "Words are easy, Ryan," Sarah cut in, the chill of her past threatening to seep into her resolve. "Your presence alone isn't enough. I need to know that you're willing to follow through. Can you commit?" "I will," he said, swallowing hard. "I realize I've taken Emily's childhood for granted. I never meant to hurt you both." His honesty tugged at her defenses, but she remained cautious. "It will take more than promises. It requires action and consistent support. I need to safeguard Emily's emotional well-being first. No easy outs, no second chances." A flicker of understanding crossed Ryan's face, and Sarah could see he was grappling with the very implications of her words. "I get it. I'm not asking for immediate trust. I just want a chance to show you both that I can be the father she deserves." As their dialogue unfolded, Sarah felt herself shifting. Yes, admitting the gravity of her emotions was vital, but so was recognizing her position of empowerment. Each exposed truth served as a scaffolding for her resolve, steadily constructing a wall around her daughter. "Understanding is one part," she asserted, "but insight arises from action. I will be watching your steps closely. We can revisit this every few months." "Absolutely. Just give me that opportunity," he replied, his tone pleading yet earnest. Yet a visceral thought pulsated inside her. It wasn't just about Ryan's intentions. It was about Emily, their safety, and the lessons Sarah had learned along the way. This meeting was as much about forgiveness as it was about boundaries, about healing while ensuring the well-being of the daughter they both loved. The conversation drifted into silence, yet Sarah found the joy in advancing towards a new horizon. She had endured heart-wrenching decisions and emerged transformed, wielding clarity even amid chaos. "I can agree to occasional meetings," she stated firmly. "You'll need to prove to me and to Emily that you can be present physically and emotionally. Transparency is essential in this process." Ryan nodded, the weight of her words draping themselves into their newfound context. "I promise. I will adhere to that." As they parted ways, the path following this conversation remained uncertain. Sarah felt more empowered, free from the baggage of her past, yet ready to reclaim her future. With renewed clarity, she lifted her phone and texted Jake about the meeting's outcome. In that moment, Sarah recognized the lessons encapsulated within them. She had conquered self-doubt, unraveled her fears, and stepped into a role where she unequivocally belonged. Each new day would be a canvas awaiting her guidance, and as she returned home, she knew she would no longer stand powerless in the face of her past. With Emily's laughter accompanying her through the door, she realized her journey was just beginning, one filled with resilience, love, and cherished connection. And as echoes of her triumph resonated within the walls of their home, Sarah knew one thing was certain. She would always fight for herself and her daughter. This evolution, This authentic transformation reflected a newfound strength that time only seemed to deepen. Now join this journey of flourishing resilience. You need to subscribe now to never miss out on exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Leave a like now to boost our reach and comment your thoughts on Sarah's journey and her incredible growth. Your support truly matters.